Welcome to the Linux Spotlight. This show is dedicated to showing off the best thing about Linux, our community. This community is made up of developers, distro maintainers, YouTubers, and everyday users. Each one plays a vital role in our community, and the goal is to have a discussion with each individual about their journey into Linux and beyond. So join me now as we turn the spotlight on. Hello, I'm your host, Rocco, and with me today is my friend, Dolphin Oracle. How are you, Dolphin?
Well, I'm just fine. How you doing, Rocco?
I am doing excellent, dude. I want to thank you for joining me today, but I want to take a minute to thank you for something else, because I mentioned that you were my friend, and one of the reasons that I mentioned that is because when we started Destination Linux, we had done episode 1, and on episode 2, you were a guest. And
yes.
It was Destination Linux episode 2, Dolphins Are Cool, I think the title was.
Yeah, something like that.
And that was like, okay, so episode 1 was just, us talking. Episode 2 was our first interview, and it was so awesome to, make yourself available to us and come on the show and talk about MX and everything. So, and you've been a part of the community and a part of Biddle ever since. And so, yeah, I do consider you my friend, and I really appreciate it.
Well, I consider you mine too. In fact, I don't even have to say, when I talk to my wife, I was like, she always says, how's Rocco doing?
Well, you were on Destination Linux episode 2. You were on Destination Linux episode 47. And you obviously are a part of MX Linux, DistroWatch's favorite distro, right?
Well, yeah.
But let me ask you,
DistroWatches anyway.
who is Dolphin Oracle personally?
Well, who am I? I am what you get. I'm by day, I'm a mild-mannered civil engineer. I have 20 years of industrial construction experience, working in power plants and coal mines and real world stuff. And my day job is not coding. It is as far away from coding as except for calculating some crazy spreadsheets and doing some whack job engineering calculations. It doesn't get any. Yeah, I don't touch it, which is weird for me personally, but. I feel like I almost have like 2 jobs. I'm daytime one and I'm nighttime another. And but it's worked out fine. It's always been the PCs and computers and however you want to say it have always been a fascination, a hobby, whatever you want to call it, for me. But even since I was a kid, but I never wanted to work in it. I think it's because of my dad. My dad started life as a chemist.
Okay.
And we lived in a little house, so tiny, in a little coal mining town in West Virginia. And he went and then he was working for one place busting concrete cylinders, and that was great, but didn't pay the bills. And so when I was coming along, he had to go do something else. And eventually, he worked for the Department of Highways in the state and did a lot of big civil engineering projects, including the New River Gorge Bridge. He did air quality testing, whatever. He was a chemist, but he was on. I got these great construction photos of the longest steel arch bridge in the world. We jump off it in June.
Why would you do that? Why would you? You don't jump off a bridge. It's high enough
for the chutes to open, man. So he went back and got a master's in information, not technology, systems, databases and stuff. And so I watched him transform our life. We moved to a bigger house. We all the little hardships started dropping away over time, and we moved to a better part of town. And all that was because of his interactions with the PC and the computer. Not the PC. For him, it was hard. It was big iron, right? It was IBM mainframes and and stuff like that. And I'm watching him work on his stuff as a kid. I'm like, that stuff is great. I don't want to do any of it. I want to do that thing where you were on the New River Gorge Bridge, is what I want to do. And so from the littlest tyke, I've always been building stuff, and that's I guess I'm still building stuff with MX and everything. Had a construction company for a while. That was a good decade or so, and did great. But it was primarily servicing the coal industry. Coal industry took a dive. Maybe you might have heard that in the news.
Yep.
And so we took the opportunity to sell out. We didn't totally collapse. We did sell out. So I managed to get my parachute back on and jump off. And now I'm doing more environmental engineering work. So I'm kind of back to my original education, which is kind of weird, not having done that for 20 years. So I'm an entry level engineer who's 45 years old and having a great time.
Nice.
It's great.
Well, besides jumping off of bridges, do you have any?
I don't jump off bridges. I watch people jump off the bridges. I build stuff. I don't jump off of them. But it is awesome, though. It's
what
cool.
hobbies do you have, brother?
Well, I'm a nerd's nerd. so computers have kind of been my hobby, but I'm also a scout leader. I've got 2 sons in scouting. One's an Eagle Scout. One's coming up.
Nice.
I'm really, really happy about that. My oldest son's off at college, so he's always telling me about his computer science. He is taking the computer route, so he's a computer science major. So my hobby is being dad. Not really a hobby, that's kind of a vocation, really. But right. Listening to him and talking about, and he's telling me about compiling stuff, and I'm talking about him compiling stuff. And so my Linux world interfaces with him more than interfaces with anybody else in the family. But I play a lot of chess. If people play on chess.com, you can look me up. Dolphin Oracle. I'm everywhere, man. And I'm not particularly good, but I'm not particularly bad. And I play a lot of 5-minute stuff. Been playing chess since I was a kid. Did a lot of high school scholastic chess, state tournaments and stuff. And to all them boys there at the Cross Lanes Chess Club, hi, from way back when. But those are my main hobbies: scouting, chess. I dabble in woodworking. I'm not the greatest at it. I do a little bit of it. I have enough to be dangerous to myself more than the projects. But yeah, so that's the main things that I do in my spare time. That and musicals.
Let me ask you, because I've never been a chess fan. It's always been above my head. What is it that like you enjoy about chess? What is it that you say, man, I just want to get into a chess match?
I don't know. When I was a kid, part of it was my dad was running the club. It was something we could do together. Like all the like 30 kids came to our club, and this is a coal mining town in West Virginia, right? And here's this guy who really isn't from the area. My mother was from there. He moved there, and he starts teaching everybody chess. And the elementary school gives him a room. He's got 30 kids from 2 different towns coming to play chess. So we all grew up playing chess because of my father. And when we got to high school, we're like, you know what? We're all pretty good right now. Why don't we get a chess team together? We did that. We won a bunch of. None of us won particularly our individual awards, but as a team, we were all good enough that we typically won the team trophies at high school events. I guess I just enjoyed that so much. Now that they got online chess and you can jump in and do a 5-minute game real fast, I just like the idea of the infinite combinations, the puzzle solving, the problem solving, and honestly, I like winning. I like beating people. And I'm no good at video games anymore. My reflexes are way too slow. My computers aren't good enough for first-person shooters. And I used to make up for that with real-time strategy games. But now my kids are beating me at real-time strategy games every time I turn around. So you know what? I still win at chess. So I guess I'm just playing chess.
There you go. Got to resort to chess.
You got to resort to chess. Yeah, the world's oldest strategy game.
All right. So you've had Mrs. Oracle on your YouTube channel. So we know she knows about Linux. We know your son knows about Linux. But what about the other people in your life, friends, coworkers? Are you able to talk about Linux with them at all?
It depends on who it is. So, as with all things, when I sold the construction company, I started and I went to work for the guy that bought it for a while, and that was good. And then I came home, and And the people I interviewed with for my current engineering job, one of the guys doing the interview was an IT guy, and they were like, what did you know anything about, computers and anything? So maybe I got this little thing called MX Linux. Maybe you've heard of it. And the guy's like, MX Linux? Yeah. At the time, I think it was number 11 or something on DistroWatch. He's like, yeah, I've seen that on DistroWatch. I'm like, really? And so I'm talking, he's talking back, and we're having a good old time. And then like the 4 other guys in the room for the interview are like, can we get back to engineering? Because
Right.
because we two can talk about this all day. So that was like my first experience with someone like out in the wild knowing what it was. So that was kind of fun. Inside the family, everybody knows. They buy me Linux t-shirts and stuff like that. And they can all use my computers. They don't necessarily all use Linux in the house. We're a very, very mixed household. But if they need to hop on, get on my computer, look up something on the internet, do something, it's good enough now that they don't have to think about it. They just do it.
Right.
Now, but where they do intersect very much is open source. So we are huge open source here in the house. So even if you're running Windows, you're probably running LibreOffice. In fact, you're definitely running LibreOffice. You're probably running, my wife runs Zotero for her database for her doctorate studies, which is huge. And you see the other people in her doctorate who don't use a tool like that. And they're like in a spreadsheet, and then something changes and Jan clicks a button and it all is fixed. And they're like 6 days later still working on theirs. That's power. And she loves that so much that when she comes to me now, when she needs a new tool, she says, what you got in open source for this? It's like, okay, so we've got a whiteboard. We've got the Zotero stuff. We got LibreOffice. We got some PDF stuff. Almost everything on her laptop is open source now that she uses. She even uses Kdenlive for her video editing on Windows, which didn't used to work very well, but I was shocked. It worked really well this last time she did it. So those guys have really done some jiggering to make KDE run fairly well on top of Windows. Both sons are the same way. They're using it all the time. And actually, I've had one real world tech support call from a friend of mine who recognized me in a video, and he called me from across town because he was installing MX on his dad's computer and he needed help. He's like, yeah, I know who you are. I need help. And if you know the guy, that's a really good invitation, actually. That's how he sounds. But so most people know I do it. Some people, when I tell them what it is, scratch their head and go, okay, I don't know what that is. Is that like Windows? Yes, it's like Windows.
Yep.
But you know what's powerful is when you pull out the live USB out of your pocket and they got something hosed on their computer, it won't boot, no screen, something's gone haywire, and they need a file off the thing. You take the thing out, you bypass every freaking problem they have by booting the live USB on it. And of course, everybody knows the MX Annex live USBs are kind of awesome. You look like a miracle worker when you do stuff like this. And it's the easiest thing in the world to do to boot up. Anybody could do it with Ubuntu, anything, any live USB. Right. You could access the drive, pull the file off, and you look like a god. And that makes them happy. So they understand that part of it, that, yeah, he's a computer guy. He knows something. I don't really know what this Linux thing is. And I've explained it to my office mate, Dave, about 6 times what it is. He keeps forgetting, and I'll probably explain it to him again later. But I don't know. I guess I don't hide it. I'm pretty public about it. I put my face on everything. But a lot of people in my hometown know I do something, but that's probably about as far as it goes.
Well, you had mentioned about your dad and the mainframes. What was the first computer that you used? Was it one of those mainframes, or were you playing on them at all?
It was not, but I remember him logging into them because when he went to work once he got his master's and he went to work for the big companies, was a database administrator and later a senior database administrator. He was taking care of servers that for a chemical company, they had, I think they had 6 plants in the United States, and he was taking care of a lot of their database applications. But the guy at the time, he couldn't install drivers for his mouse. I remember him calling me once and want me to plug in to install his mouse because he can drive big iron, but he can't plug in a mouse. The first PC that I remember having in the house was a Commodore not a 64 because that was for rich people. Commodore VIC 20, which is this little brother. And it was fine. And the only we had games for it. We hoked around with it. It had this sound chip that had all these sounds on it. And one of the sounds on it was a telephone ringing. And kids today aren't going to realize that phones rang in different parts of the house, and you had to wander around the house to answer the phone. You just didn't take the phone out of your pocket and answer it.
Right.
And so we would, when my brother and I were little, we played tricks on our babysitter by making the computer phone ring and making her chase all over the house trying to answer the phone. And that was great fun. I remember doing that. But that was because the sound chip in that thing was really good. It had like sampled sounds, and it didn't sound digital at all. It sounded like a daggone bell, and it was a lot of fun. But the first one I used on a routine basis was a Tandy 1000. It was an 8086 processor, ran on 2 floppy drives. Actually had a color monitor. That was my first color monitor. I played an arena football game on it that actually had voice sound. That was the Tandy 1000's thing. It had a voice chip before anybody else. It was great. That was 1980 something that had that.
Oh my.
If you can believe it, I went to college in 93. I took that computer with me. That was my first computer in college. It was. That computer was a workhorse. And even though I couldn't do very much on it, I could get DOS to boot on it. It was DOS, I don't know, 1 point something or other, or 2 point something or other. But we had this application for structural analysis that ran in DOS, and that thing would still run it. You couldn't run it on Windows 95 because Windows 95 did something to the math. The answers would be wrong. But if you ran it on DOS, it worked. And it came on a 5.25-inch floppy disk. And I put this thing in the Tandy, and it worked fine.
Oh my.
And I came home with straight A's, and my dad said, yeah, we're getting you a new computer. And so then I had a nice big steel Gateway 2000 486 DX 100 megahertz, no sound card. We added the CD-ROM later. It weighed about 50 pounds, but it was awesome. And it was the best. It's still the best computer I've ever owned. 4 megabytes of RAM, and I was living a large.
Yep.
100 megabyte hard drive. He got when the chemical plant eventually went broke, went out of business, and so he was laid off for a while. And he actually took my computer and used one of those old disk doubler softwares to steal half my hard drive. And he took half the hard drive and learned database, the new Oracle database type programming, and got him. That's when I got into his new jobs, and he used my computer for that. But he only did it over the summer. He let me take it back to school. But it was a lot of fun. Got on bulletin board systems with it. Had a modem. I mean, it was pretty awesome for that kid from Coal Town, West Virginia.
Yeah. Well, so that's back in the early 90s.
That's 93 for that one.
Yeah. So Linux is just going to be starting. When do you hear about it?
Okay, so that summer my dad was off and stealing my computer. One of the things he put on it was Red Hat Linux. And it was an early version. He went to the store and bought it in a box. Shocker. Came on, I don't know, 15 floppy disks or something. I don't know. It was a bunch of floppies. And so he's telling me all about this Linux thing. He says, it's kind of like Unix. Like I knew what Unix was. I didn't know what Unix was either. This is how he describes it, because he'd been banging away on HP mainframes forever. And he goes, yeah, it's kind of like Unix, but free, strangely. Okay. So, and he's banging away, and so it was, again, my father's introduced me to so much in my life. Now I probably lap him a little bit now, but as for a kid, I don't think there's too many dads introducing their kid to Linux at that time. And that was awesome for me. I could probably go home and still find those old Red Hat discs. He doesn't throw anything away, so they're probably still in the bookcase.
Wow. So you install Red Hat. What is your first feelings of seeing Linux? Like, what are the good things? What are the bad things?
Well, I was a kid, so to me is like, his didn't have any desktop, any graphical desktop. It was all on the command line. He was writing programs. To me, it just looked like DOS all over again. I didn't really understand the whole spiel. And when I went back to college, I actually ran OS2 Warp for a long time, because I've always been a kind of an alternate operating system guy. And later, it's not till much later that I actually get into running Linux as a desktop, and that's going to have to be Ubuntu coming along, which I read about in one of the computer magazines.
Do you remember what version?
The first one I actually installed is Ubuntu 6, Etch, whatever Etch was, 6 I think, and that's the first one I saw because that was the first time I had a laptop of my own. We had the family computer, but I didn't really want to hose the family computer, so I inherited this laptop from my wife, and it was underpowered. It couldn't run anything anymore. And that's what, if you remember, they pushed Linux back then as keep your computer out of the landfill. So, hey, I want to keep this computer out of the landfill. So I got it on there and I put it on there and I played with that. And the experience was so bad that I didn't stick with Ubuntu for very long. And that's not Ubuntu's fault. My computer was really underpowered. I was in love with the interface. The GNOME, I even liked the brown. It was brown back then. I even liked the brown. I liked that little tribal drum beat that it gave me when I logged into the first time. I liked the whole shtick that Canonical had going on at the time with this is the free operating system for the world, right? And they got the people join hands. That's what the Ubuntu symbol is. It's people holding hands in a circle. I loved all that. I wanted on board with that. I wanted to be with that. And so I got Ubuntu, but I could type faster than the characters on the screen would appear. And I couldn't use it. My computer was really bad. Okay. Like I said, it wasn't their fault, but I could. So they said, well, try Xubuntu. Xubuntu was new. They had at the time I tried, there was the Xubuntu was a thing. I think the KDE version was a thing too, but they were relatively new. I don't even think the KDE one was official yet. And I'm not sure the Xubuntu was either, but it was close. It was all in there. So I got the Xubuntu. It was better, but I could still outrun it. Even on the XFCE desktop, I could still type fast. And I think it came with the AbiWord. I could still type faster in AbiWord than the thing would update. So I went into the Ubuntu forum. I had to go look. My Ubuntu forum registration is like 2006. And this, I think a lady, I'm not sure, helped me set up Fluxbox. And Fluxbox, now I really got rid of some overhead. With all the stuff stripped away, I'm running Ubuntu with Fluxbox on top of it. Now it can keep up with me. And so I was sold. And I stayed with Fluxbox. That's how I got involved with Antics. Because I started bouncing around I started distro hopping, right?
Mm-hmm. Everybody does.
That's a disease that everybody catches. So I bounced around, and I bounced around all over the place. I went a lot of Slackware distributions. Which taught me a lot about compiling stuff because that was kind of the thing with Slackware at the time. It still sort of is, but there's a lot more packages now that people set up. Basically, anywhere that I can compile Raylink wireless card drivers, because that was what I had. I had a Raylink card that I researched so that the laptop was old enough that it didn't come with wireless. So I had to get a wireless card for it. I slid into one of those card slots. And so I researched to find one that at least offered drivers that were compilable. Now you can get open source drivers for them, but then you couldn't, or they were really bad. So the best bet was to compile them from the manufacturer. So I'm in the Antics forum. We're doing that. I just kind of stick around because I didn't have to do anything with it. It was Fluxbox already. They were doing some interesting things on getting auto-updating menus because Fluxbox back then didn't have auto-updating menus. It was really terrible. It actually still doesn't, but people work around it a lot more by default now. And I just kind of ended up there. And then I took a break for a while because, well, to be honest, my second son was born. And that took a lot of time.
Yep.
And so I wasn't quite as active. I was still roaming the forums, but I wasn't doing much with anything. And then, for whatever reason, he as he got older, I had my time for my keyboard again, and jumped back in, and I've been there ever since. Well, now mostly with MX, but everywhere. I've been in Presence ever since. But
so, is there a point that you make the switch to Linux full time? No Windows, or do you still run Windows at all?
No, we run Windows at home. I like to tell people I'm not an ideologue. I don't need I don't really care what people run. I just want them to also run Linux. Um, Part of that is might make me a filthy dual booter. That's not the case. I don't dual boot anything. This laptop is a Linux laptop. Well, I do dual boot, but they're all Linuxes. And
Right.
I've got Fedora, Peppermint, and
You're
three
such a distro
MXs on
hopper,
this
dude.
machine right now. What's that?
You're such a distro hopper.
I am such a distro hopper. I got 3 different MXs on here right now. But the family, we cut the cable cord some years ago, right? So we're kind of entrenched in the iTunes world, and that still doesn't work very well in Linux. It doesn't work at all in Linux. Honestly, you can do everything from your phone, but if my kid wants to watch, at the time when he was little, it was I got the whole season of Phineas and Ferb, because that was
Great
how you
show.
did
Great
it,
show.
right. The greatest show ever.
Great show. I love it.
Yeah. We still watch it.
I still watch it.
No,
I
it's
love
fantastic. It's fantastic. But we had to go to a service that when we told the kids we were going to cut the cord, we had to go to a service that could provide us Phineas and Ferb, and that was iTunes.
Nice.
So we got this library. So the media PC downstairs is Windows, and that's actually my son's primary computer. He does all his computing in the middle of the room so that we can all see what he's doing. He's 14. It started off as a way to monitor him when he was little, and it's just kind of stuck that way. And to be honest, I kind of like it. So for all you parents out there, you might want to think about just having one PC and making it on the family television. They don't hide much on a 30-inch television. But at any rate, that's a side story. But so that machine's Windows just because it has to be. My machines are all Linux. We got a couple Chromebooks floating around, which people can argue whether it's Linux or not. I'm in the Linux camp because I can pull up a shell. Linux commands work. I'm saying it's Linux. It might be proprietary on top, but it's Linux underneath. We don't have any Mac. My wife uses Macs at school. The presentation software for their smart board, their projection board thingy bobs, is on Mac and Windows. So she's mostly Windows. We actually tried to get her on MX not long ago, but the Lenovo Yoga had a problem. It wouldn't take any Linux, not just MX. It wouldn't take anything. So she runs it live when she needs to. She has a little pink USB stick that she uses when she needs to run open source software. Well, mine's blue. Hers is pink. It was a 2-pack. So we split them and we hang them up on. They got monkey tails, so we hang them on a little hook, and they're like, in case of emergency, dial Linux. So we're a mixed household, and for me, I figure I bought Windows with some of this stuff. Why not use it? I don't care. I have to use it at work anyway. In the engineering world, I got to have AutoCAD, and AutoCAD is famously not going to run on Linux.
Right.
Otherwise, I could do it at work without AutoCAD. Everybody's got that one application, right? That's my one at work. That's the only one that I wouldn't be able to do without. Is that? But at home, yep, 100% for me anyway. Even my son, when he bought me a game for my birthday, then he made sure it would run on Linux because he knows I won't switch back to Windows to run a game. Right. I'm one of those guys. My laptop won't even run Proton. So I'm kind of hurting in that regard.
You need a new computer, dude.
It's coming, but it isn't here yet. It'll be all right. But I like the ThinkPads, man. They're nice and they're cheap when you get them old.
Well, you mentioned earlier about Antics and how you started, but your YouTube channel you started that in June of 2013.
Yeah.
The first video that you made was called Installing Antics 13.
Yes.
And this video was a VirtualBox install. It looked like from Windows 7.
It probably is Windows 7 because at the time I didn't have recording software that would run on Linux. I think I used Cam Studio.
But how far into Antics were you at that time, and what made you start to make videos about it?
So at the time, I had been using Antics for a while. I stuck with Antics for the most part because all my hardware tended to be hand-me-downs or recycled. I'd buy the good stuff for the family, and I keep the junk because I can keep the junk running longer. So Antics 13 was like a godsend. It was like to me, it's almost still the best release of Antics ever. I don't know why. I just feel maybe it's because it was the first one I really got my hands dirty in, but it is one. It ran. It was so fast. It was the first version of Annex that ran better on my EE PC, those little 9-inch jobbers from the 2Ks.
Yep.
It was the first one that ran better than Windows XP on that machine, and so I ran it for a long time. I had it on that laptop for a long time, but probably longer than I should have with updates and internet and all that stuff. But it just ran so good. So I wanted to give something back to the channel. I wasn't very technical back then. I was trying to do stuff from a user's point of view, stuff that was hard for me. I wanted to show other people what to do. And to be honest, Annex was like 50 or 60 on the DistWatch chart. I mean, it didn't get very much love. So I was like, well, no one is doing anything with Annex. I'll make some videos. And it just it got such a good response in the Annex forum that just kept going. But if you look, I think my next 2 videos though are Linux Lite, because I was looking to bounce around a little bit, and I was playing with Linux Lite at the time because I did have one machine that was a little more capable. So I was back to playing with Linux Lite at the time, and I think I got one on installing Brother printers. I got a comment last week on that video saying, "Oh my God, you helped me so much! Thank you." Like, yes, that's what they're there for. And the videos are persistent in a way that forum posts aren't. I mean, the forum posts are persistent, but YouTube was becoming more and more the place where people went to learn how to do things. Anything.
Yep.
Not just Linux and stuff. I mean, I've learned how to adjust the rudder. Oh, I should have mentioned that when I said hobby. I do have a model airplane. That's the other thing. I'm not very good at it. I like to tell people I have 4 successful takeoffs and 2 successful landings.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which is why it's parked in the garage right now, because I'm learning how to readjust the rudders so that it flies in a straight line again.
Sounds like operator error to me.
It was totally operator error. And if you need to take off, I needed more than the Little League home plate to third base line to take off. And I didn't get it off the ground real quick once, and the front landing gear clipped third base and didn't land. It got off the ground, but it didn't land real good when it came back down. And so I'm waiting for it to warm up so I can get back in the shop. But at any rate, so I've been learning. So YouTube's been valuable for that kind of thing. That was the kind of thing people were starting to do, and so I always want to hand that something back to the Annex community, because they'd given me this operating system for nothing that saved my machines. Now, and the Annex folks take a little bit of heat because there's some political stuff in their bookmarks. I think I used Annex for like 3 years before I realized there was any bookmarks in the thing. I'm not the best judge of looking for every single detail that's in something. That's the guy's prerogative, as far as I'm concerned. He can do what he wants. If people don't like it, don't run it. It's fine. But for me, it saved my hardware.
Yeah.
And that was all I wanted, was my hardware to work. So the videos came after that. And they've evolved in different ways over time. I did a whole series on the apps that were included in Annex 13 or 15 at one point. Those were incredibly ill received. They don't have very many hits because they're kind of boring, but they fit into a documentation that was going on the back end in Annex. So they're actually linked somewhere in an Annex document someplace from back then. Now it's all old news, but so we tried a lot of things to keep things going. And I still have one video that's included in the menu on Annex for how to operate their personal menu system, because they do things with IceWM and Fluxbox and the other window managers that no one else does. And it's good to highlight that from time to time, just to show things off.
Well, your YouTube channel is called Run with the Dolphin.
Mm-hmm.
Your name is Dolphin Oracle.
Yes.
Username everywhere. So how did these 2 usernames come about?
Okay, so Dolphin Oracle is something I've had since college. Well, not really. I had a former name in college because I was into Greek mythology. I was doing a lot of classics. I had a classics professor. I was for a civil engineer. I had a parish priest, okay, and he was one of the great influences in my life, both in a computer standpoint, because he's the first priest I ever met running a PC, and he ran like an Amiga. he was really out. He was really on the cutting edge. And I asked him, how can you afford all this? And he looks at me and says, well, I don't have a vow of poverty. You're thinking of nuns. Okay, fair enough. So Father Weber, one of the great influences in my life, he told me before I went to college, take some humanities. Don't build your buildings facing highways. Make them facing rivers, things like that. He was always giving me little tidbits. And so anyway, in college, I had taken all these humanities courses because I always listened to Father Weber. And I was kind of enamored with, my dad was working with Oracle stuff at the time with his database stuff. So I needed a name for a bulletin board system in the college town. So I said, I'll be Delphi Oracle. That's nice and generic. And so I was Delphi Oracle for like 3 years on the local bulletin boards. I was Delphi Oracle. Well, the internet comes along. Yeah, there's a lot more people on the internet than there were on the local bulletin board. And Delphi Oracle was, of course, taken. I could be Delphi Oracle 9,276, or I could be something else. So Delphi Oracle was attached to Apollo. Apollo is associated with dolphins. Dolphin Oracle was born.
There you go.
It started with the D. I didn't have to change the initials. It was fine. So that's where Dolphin Oracle comes from. So later, when I'm thinking about this YouTube channel, I'm not thinking about Annex. I'm thinking about Annex in particular, but I'm thinking about Linux in general at the time. And I'm like, and people weren't using their names for the YouTube channels back then. They were making. You could have a channel name,
right?
And so I had a channel name, and I had this idea in my head of a dolphin with tennis shoes, and running, and people could run Linux with Dolphin Oracle, and we'll work through things together and all that kind of thing. And that's kind of how that was born. And right after I did it, I don't know, like 2 months after I set up this separate channel, YouTube starts switching everything back to where everybody's just back to using their name, and you don't have channel names anymore. And I'm like, you know what? You're great. You gave me this. I am not budging. I am grandfathered in. I have a URL that's awesome, youtube.com/runwiththedolphin. And I'm not giving it up.
I love it.
And YouTube and I have been on very good terms the whole time. They don't care about me, and I don't care very much about them. We leave each other alone. My channel's not monetized. I didn't want people having to see ads when they came on my channel. A lot of that's due to guys like Sneaky Linux and a guy who you may or may not know called Puppy Linux World, who is actually English Bob now, because English Bob changed his name like 17 times. And I love Bob.
More than 17, dude.
A lot. So one summer, while in the middle of me processing all this and going to get my channel ready, my wife and my oldest son went to Philmont Scout Ranch in New Mexico. And my youngest son, he was little at the time, he went to stay with grandma because I had to work. So he went to stay with grandma. They were all gone for like 10 days. So I stayed in the house by myself, and I didn't do anything at night except turn on the netbook and watch YouTube videos. And almost all of them are Puppy or Steve and Sneaky Linux. And so I wanted to kind of model things like what they were doing. And Steve was doing the whole Puppy Linux, like his thing was Puppy at the time, Yep. And so I watched a lot of Puppy stuff there. And Sneaky Linux was doing all kinds of stuff with all kinds of different distros. I couldn't understand half of what he said, but it was the way he said it. I just loved it. I watched like his entire catalog of stuff in 2 weeks. And so that was the inspiration. I don't do it near as good as those guys do. But I contribute in my own way. So,
yep. Well, dude, you contribute. You have, as of my last count, you have 192 uploads.
Yes.
Just under 3,000 subscribers.
Hope next month, hopefully.
But on March 24th of 2014, you released a video called Introducing MX14. It was a short 2.5 minute video.
It's a goofy video.
But it was awesome because I'm reading it. It says the Linux kernel 3.12.3.2, XFCE 4.10.2, Debian 7 core.
That's right.
I was rolling, dude.
You're bringing it, man. We're bringing it. So that video, and that's the one with the scrolling text with,
Yes.
the infinite scroll,
Yeah,
like
you weren't
the
even
movies.
talking. It was just music.
No, and it's got some hard rock music in the background.
Yep.
And I actually used Kdenlive and OpenShot to make that video. I think at one point I opened up VLC and the MX14 logo comes swooping down at you, and I made that completely by accident in OpenShot, and but I saw it, and it took like my machine was worthless, right? And that 3D animation stuff takes a lot of horsepower.
Yep.
That little like 10-second blurb took like 2 hours to render on my computer. I'm like, I am not throwing this thing away. I am going to use it somewhere. So I played it in VLC while I was recording the rest of it, just to just to get that little snippet. Yeah, that video was a lot of fun. The MX guys were a little questioned my taste in music after that video, but they've cut me some slack since then. Actually, they give me heck on all my music choices all the time. That's why I cut the music out, because I got tired of hearing how lousy my taste in music is. But that's okay.
Let them say it. Don't worry about it. Well, help them out. You did. So now today, what is your official title with MX?
I am the lead dev and spokesperson for MX Linux. I took over the lead dev spot with the MX17 release. MX16 was the last one for actually the same guy who does Annex was lead dev at the time. And it was getting too much. Annex was rising in popularity. MX was definitely rising in popularity. DistroWatch called us. At the time, we were linked together on the Annex link. On the Annex, we weren't listed separately on DistroWatch until MX16. And they called up and said, "Hey, you want a separate listing?" Like, yeah, okay. So we got a separate listing, and then things really started exploding then. And he really wanted to do. We needed to split the team because it was too much for one guy to run two projects in that way. And he really wanted to back out a little bit. He's still involved, obviously, because we use the Annex Live system, but he really wanted to back out and concentrate on Annex again with his core mission statement of lean and mean and old computers. And I'm like, yeah, I can do it. I've been playing with the build system for like a year. I think I can make this. And so we split. We didn't split. We split probably. I took over as lead. I build the ISOs. That's my primary responsibility. I'm almost like the release project manager. I got the final say on when we release. I got the final say on freezes and things like that. But I contribute stuff back to Annex, but it's gotten to be a little bit less since MX has grown, especially as the team's grown larger. The MX team's pretty good size for a small project of active developers. It's not just guys that show up and say they're on the dev team. We've got like 25. I counted yesterday. We got 25 people on the dev team list, and 20 of them are constantly posting and active. And
that is awesome.
There's maybe not everybody's a coder, but we got people working on themes. We got people doing troubleshooting. The forum crew is fantastic.
Contributing either way, it doesn't matter.
I mean, the support. I can't say enough about those guys that answer every post in the forums, because that took a lot of load off of us to actually fix stuff. They're finding it. They're sending up red flags when it really does need to come to us. We bust out some patches or fixes or whatever. And that's all that stuff's going really well. Our project manager is a guy named Jerry3904 in a forum, Jerry Bond, and he just released his first MX Linux video on his channel about his Fluxbox setup. We got a special MX Fluxbox setup in MX 19.1, and it's kind of his brainchild. It's kind of his baby, and he always tells me, he says, "I didn't want it just to work. I wanted it to be fun." And so that's his fun part is the MX Fluxbox stuff, and it's really interesting. It's a totally different spin. People don't look at it; they don't need to think about Annex or anything like that. So he's got that. He's kind of babying that right now. We got a guy who does Grub and the live system, and it's just fantastic. We got like 3 or 4 people working on the tool set now, so we're really spread out, and it's just great. But we needed a core group to manage that project without Linux to it, so that's what I do.
Right.
And so we've got so some of the stranger stuff that crops up, I sometimes have a hand in, especially if it's on the back end.
Well, you mentioned earlier about making videos for Antics because you wanted to give back and you weren't really giving back like technical
Yeah.
stuff. So, how do you go from that point to being so technical to being the release manager and building ISOs and coding and all this other stuff?
So, as a friend of mine literally told me today, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? And it's practice, practice, practice. He's a friend of mine. Hi, Tim. He is singing Carnegie Hall tonight with his
Really?
with his quartet, and he's so excited, and I'm so happy for him to be doing that.
That's awesome.
It's not one of the MX guys. It's a guy from real world, real life. But he's so tickled. I checked in with him today because he just got a new job. I'm like, how's your new job going? It's great, but I'm at Carnegie Hall. Like, oh, go! You've been waiting for this one. So, but so it started with some simple Bash stuff, and Bash is great. Bash is like the gateway drug. Okay, you can do so much in a script as Bash is a scripting language, and that's where I started because it wasn't so much unlike the old DOS scripting languages, the BAT, the autoexec.bat, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
It wasn't so dissimilar from that. So I could kind of jump into that a little bit. And as over time, I wanted to add something to a script. And so I had to research how to do that. And then finally I came up, I was like, I'm going to build an actual application for something. And so I started to build it and I showed them and they're like, no, that's terrible. You can't do that. That's horrible. But instead of kicking me out like so many people would out there in the world and ignoring me, he's like, here's how you can make it better. And there's a guy named BitJam who really held my hand on early Bash stuff. And I am a Padawan learner compared to this guy. This guy like bleeds Bash. Okay. And so I've learned a lot from him. I've learned a lot from the Antics. Most of the Antics tools are in Bash. So you can, if you need to know how to do something, crack the things open, you can look and see how it works. So that's a lot of how I did it. When we got to MX, we do a lot of the MX tools are in Qt. At least the GUIs are in Qt. So I needed to learn Qt because they wanted my Bash YAD type GUI scripts didn't look real good in comparison to the other things. So we started building some things. I started learning how to do Qt programming. And a guy named Adrian held my hand in our forum. He's one of our leads, actually. He's one of our three, the triumvirate at the moment, me, Jerry, and Adrian. He helped me a lot with Qt. And he's the first to admit he doesn't know everything about Qt, but he was willing to work at it. And so I was willing to work at it. And now we got a couple other guys who are really good at it. Actually, we're posers compared to a couple of our other team members. But we're all just getting better every time. And that's how I did it. Over time, it worked out.
Practice, practice, practice. Huh?
Well, yeah. And I've always been that guy who wanted to know everything about the way the machine works. So a lot of times I might know what to do, but not how to do it. And so if you combine that with someone else who knows how to make things happen, but doesn't know what to do, and now you're dangerous. Now you got both sides of the equation. And that's what we were doing a lot with Antics 13 and forward. I was doing a lot of bug troubleshooting and stuff like that. With MX 14, I was definitely on the bug hunt side, smashing things down. I had not run XFCE hardly at all, except for a couple of videos where I built an XFCE on top of Antics Core. I really don't run XFCE until MX came along, which is weird but true. And so we had to learn a whole lot. But the XFCE guys they don't get enough credit for how brilliant some of the underlying stuff is. You can do things with the little XFConf query tool. They'll blow your mind. Okay. We don't necessarily have to, from a Bash script, you can turn off the compositor. You can add a thing to the panel. You can flip the panel, which is what we do. Well, actually the panel flips now in C, but it used to be in Bash, and you can flip it with that. All sorts of things. And it's so customizable. And all the configuration files They're not stuffed in some decomp folder someplace. They're not stuffed in some binary database file that you got to hack. They're in XML text files, and they're easy. The only thing you got to pay attention to is you can't edit those files up front. You can't edit them directly because the XF comp, the settings manager thingy, daemon in the background, keeps track of all that, and it saves back to them. So if you just write them directly, you're going to wipe them out. That little tidbit of knowledge enabled like 50% of the features that we included in the first MX release, because now we could manipulate the XF comp system. And once we could do that, we were dangerous. And that's one reason we're so tied into XFCE is because we learned how to use it. Right. And it's just great. So it all builds over time. It all builds over time. As far as the build system goes, I didn't write the build system for MX, but I did learn how to use it. And it took me a lot to learn how to use it, because it's easy now, but it wasn't easy at first. And but it's very, very comprehensive in what it can do. And it's the only reason that we can pump out, we pump out 3 ISOs now for MX. Antix pumps out like 6 for Antix. So the automation that we have in the build system is the only reason we can do that.
Right.
And it's just, but yeah, it's just practice. The first Qt app I have in MX is MX System Sounds. And all it does is allow you to set a sound theme in XFCE, which most people don't realize XFCE supports system sounds. It does. It's in the little appearance tab, and there's 2 little checkboxes that say enable system sounds, and it's the most boring interface in the universe because there's nothing to it. It's just 2 checkboxes. That's all there is. There's no setting the theme. There's no nothing. But they do all that.
Yep.
If you know how to make the XF comp thing do it. So we wrote a little thing to do all that. And that was my first one. It was originally written in Bash. And the guy's like, you need to write this in Qt because this Bash thing's horrible. You need to redo this thing. So we did the Qt, and that taught me a lot. And we have our own little tricks and libraries and things to make life easy. But like, I'm not sure I could go off into. I tried once, right? I cloned an XFCE Git whatever, and I'm looking at. I'm like, I have no idea what these people are doing. I can't follow any of it. I'm just going to close this and wait for somebody who does know what they're doing to look at it. So I go back to filing bug reports. That's how you contribute when you don't know what you're doing. You file the bug report, and hopefully someone comes along and has to fix it.
Yep. Well, I think the one thing that makes MX attractive to people is all of the tool sets that you have put into it to do tiny little things that you could do some other way, but you put in these little tool sets that just allow you to do it so easy.
Yeah, that's kind of been our shtick, right? Because there are things in the tool set that you're right. You can do them on any Linux distribution. They're nothing special. MX is absolutely 100% Linux. We're not pretending to be anything else. But there are things that people need to do, and you can go read the wiki. You can go read the Arch wiki. You can read the Ubuntu wiki. You can go read whatever wiki you want. And it's going to give you 6 or 7 or 10 commands, and they are the same commands every time you need to do something. Or some guy on the MX team we call it having an itch. We call it scratching our own itches. People always call, how can I contribute to Annex? Find an itch and scratch it. Okay. That's how all these tools get written. We were tired of explaining to people how to reinstall Grub.
Yep.
When they hose something. Because God knows that if you're dual booting in the modern world, you can hose Grub. It's easy. It's so easy. It's mind-bogglingly easy.
Yep.
It's actually harder in the UEFI world than it is in the old days. But yes, it's easy. So Adrian says, we need a tool for that. So he takes a weekend, he bangs out this Grub installer tool, and it has like 4 things. The 4 most common things they want to do. Reinstall it, fix the menu, back something up. I don't know, something else. I forget what they all are. I only ever use the first 3.
Yep.
And that was like, it was a godsend. It was a revelation to people that, yeah, we can do that. We only we kind of inherited that mindset from Mepis, the original, kind of the mothership of the project. And Mepis isn't around anymore. Obviously, we're the We're not the real successors. I call it the spiritual successors. Okay. Uh, but he started, the guy that ran Mepis, Warren Woodford. He started it with the very first three tools he had. He had the system assistant, I think he called it, the wireless assistant, and there was one more assistant. I forget what the other one is. We still sort of kind of have the wireless assistant. The our network assistant manager thing is directly inspired by that tool. And he wrote the original installer. And those are, the installer now is almost incomprehensibly different from what he wrote, but the screens on top are almost the same. But the just because the Mepis community, what was the Mepis community became the MX community. And I tell people, we had a community before we had a distro,
Yep.
and not a lot of distros can say that. And so we had to do things the way they wanted it done because we didn't want to lose those guys. So a lot of the things we do are because that's how it was done with Mepis. And we've of course we jump from KDE to ANIC to XFCE, but we tell people to scratch their own itches, and that's how these things get built. And that's how the System Sounds tool got built, because someone wanted a login sound, and I was like, you know what, I think I know how to do that. And so we banged out something to make a login sound. And the tweak tool is my baby right now, because it has all the things in it that I found myself changing every time I did an installation. Like, I'm going to make this easier, at least on myself. And then now it's become, people are suggesting things over time, and we're adding different system tweaks to it. And it's just become kind of its own thing. It's not an XFCE tweak tool; it's an MX tweak tool. But this stuff just kind of grows over time. All these little itches and scratches that people have, they get coded. We don't, unlike some other distros, we don't care what they're coded in necessarily. We've got some Python, we've got some Bash, we've got some Qt. I think we even have one GTK app. I don't remember exactly, but yeah, that's how you end up with all this stuff. And those tool sets have been really popular because it lets regular people, right, regular folks, do things that are kind of complicated. And even if they don't know to use the tool to do it, we can say, hey, we got a tool for that. Here's how you operate it. Right. And that makes life a lot easier on them, because people like clicking things. They don't like necessarily ticky-tacking out commands, but they like clicking things. And clicking is easy. If it asks for a password, that's the hardest thing they're going to get. And that's kind of what we wanted. And it's working out pretty well so far.
Well, your tool set goes from everything to really technical stuff, making it easy, to just a simple thing. And one of my favorite things is the applications installer, where you have where you just have checkboxes basically of, I want to install these 12 programs, boom, 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 install, and it just goes on its way.
So that is Adrian's baby, but we have all had a hand in one way or another in that thing. We needed to we had something from the old, I think it was Sidix, or maybe it was Seduction, I forget. They had a very similar application, and it was not aging very well. And so we needed a new one. And so the popular apps tab was the very first thing we did. And that worked out pretty well. But then then it was like, why don't we make something a little more one-stop shop? So, okay, but let's do it our way. Let's not do it the same way everybody else has done it. Let's do it our way. So we have the tab for the stable repo. And then someone was like, you know what? People are installing stuff from our test repo and leaving the test repo enabled, and it's hosing their computers when they do updates. We should probably make it so that they can easily install from the test repo, but not accidentally hose their computers in an update. Okay, so we made the test repo thingy tab. And people don't realize it. It's not even enabled when it displays the stuff. We got some magic going on in the background to make the stuff display, but the repo itself's not enabled until you check a box and click install. So you can't hose your computer doing this. And even if the machine crashes, it should remove. It's supposed to anyway. It's supposed to remove the MX test repo so it doesn't break your machine later. That was the whole idea. And then test repo was so easy. We said, you know what? Debian backports is kind of weird to install from. Let's just add that tab. Okay. And then our art director, and I love her, Asquith, our art director, came along. And she's like, I've been really using Flatpaks. We should have a Flatpak thing. And Adrian's like, well, I'm not doing anything for the next, 3 weeks. I'll bang something out. So he takes forever. The Flatpak was so hard to make the thing do what we wanted it to do.
Right.
And we eventually get it. And that's been relatively popular. And that's just how this stuff gets. Everybody has a little scratch and an itch, and they bring something. Say, you know what? That's a good idea. Let's just do that. And like I said, it's just kind of working out. And people come and go. Not everybody's there all the time.
Right.
We've had people building packages, and they come and go. And I just try to wave as they go by and come back later. Cornbread's on the stove. Come on back.
Well, you have all of these tools, dude. And they go, like I said, they go from advanced to, beginner stuff like installing applications. But who's the target audience for MX?
So I people have asked me that before, and I've always had a hard time answering it. But I think I have the answer now, and the answer is the MX target audience is for people that want to run Linux, they want to install Linux, and they just want to run it. They don't want to hop. They just want it to run forever. The Debian stable base gets a lot of knocks for how slow it does. It updates anything, and that's true. But the flip side is it don't break very often. So if you want something to come along, if you just want to be able to run whatever you want to run forever, basically, we're the distro for you. Now, I might have made a small modification to that this last release with the AHS release, because that one's a little more not Debian. It's Debian, but it's newer stuff. And we're about, 85% on success on it with getting these AMD machines to boot with it. But that was kind of my baby, and the package team set up this repo some time ago. And we were beating it back and forth. And I was like, okay. And we could enable it and run it. And not a lot of people were doing it. I was like, you know what? We need to make a spin. And so one of the guys made a snapshot. That's one of the other great things people love is the snapshot tool.
Yep.
And the guy made a snapshot. He's like, here it is, try it out. So people were running the snapshot, and it was working great. People things that couldn't boot before were booting. Like, you know what? This is going to be official. We're going to make an official one. So we rolled out this new official one, and that's the one I run. And that's all going pretty good. But that's who it's for. Now, the other thing it's for is if you've been run out of someone else's Linux community because, they're grumpy or whatever. Well, we're grumpy too, but we're less grumpy. We're not going to run you away. We might need a cup of coffee every now and then, and we might get tired and bleary-eyed. But at the end of the day, we're going to try to help you. And we got a lot of folks in the forum. We have so many people in the forum now. And our moderators are very, very, let's say diligent, maybe too diligent sometimes, but diligent in that they're going to protect the forum members, and they do enforce the rules. And I know dev team members have been called down on occasion. And so that means they're enforcing the rules right. So if you want to be in a Linux community, that's going to have, that's just, I don't know, I want to say friendlier. I guess it's friendlier. Then this is a good place for you. And you know what? If you don't like it and you want to go someplace else, that's just okay too. Just go run Linux somewhere else. It'll be fine. We're all going to be happy. There's enough people. There's enough Linux distributions out there. We're all going to be peachy keen. And you know what? We're still there if you come back. Just don't ask us Ubuntu questions. That does make us grumpy.
So what I heard from that is that MX is the best community out there, and it's the cure for distro hopping. That's what
it's my cure for distro hopping. I haven't hopped, and it's definitely my favorite place to be. We do some things that are a little strange for community run forums. We really lock down political. We don't want people spouting their politics. We don't really care what your politics are. Come enjoy Linux. Right. Go someplace else to spout your politics. I really don't care. I don't care if you're a communist. I don't care if you're a raging capitalist like I am. I don't care. Come play with Linux. Have a good time with it.
Yep.
And that's what we want. Life's too short to be mean to people.
Dude, that is so true.
So right? True. It's kind of like your modus operandi, Rocco. The nicest guy on the internet.
Nah, negative, sir. Negative. Moving on.
Yep.
You have a brand new release,
Yes.
19.1. And this is, I guess, a refresh, maybe not a major point.
Yeah,
release?
most of it is an update of. In fact, 99.9% is through the regular update process. So if you already were running, you didn't really need to install. But it was time. There were some changes to the installer, some bug fixes. There were some little under the hood things. We've done some nice things for people to make snapshots, and we wanted to make sure that everybody had a nice fresh start for that. So we rolled out this new one. And I might have mentioned the AHS, the Oz ISO is brand new. And unlike the other two are kind of traditional Debian stable kernels with the usual MX stuff on top of it. The Oz is a little bit different. It has an extra repo enabled, and it brings the enhanced graphics stack that a lot of the AMD users need, and a later kernel. And we still haven't quite decided how we're going to. I mean, it updates through the repo automatically. In fact, we've updated Mesa twice since we released it, or once since we released it. So we're not sure how often we're going to refresh that ISO yet. I'll probably do it when we do other releases anyway, but I don't know if we're going to do monthly snapshots like we do with the others. But that was kind of my baby. This project was helping that thing along. The package team, Steve and Tim and Mike and Swamp Rabbit, they really came together to get the updated Mesa packages in there, and that's really the thing that I wanted to get out there was this Oz repo for the newer hardware. Now we do have the Fluxbox thing, the MX Fluxbox thing. That's on all three of the ISOs, and that's just kind of a little fun thing. And everybody can check it out if they want to. It's right there on the login menu. You just click it and you log in, and it's good. It's not going to screw up XFCE or anything. And that was Jerry's kind of brainchild. He's really enjoying that. Other than that, it's mostly bug fixes. And one little hidden feature on the installer where that's going to sound like gobbledygook, and I'm not really going to say so right now because I'm going to do a video on it to explain it to people. But basically, if you make a snapshot and your user's name demo, and you can when you install later, it won't make it. It'll use all that stuff in the demo home folder as the base for the first user created on the next install. It didn't used to do that before. It used to, if a snapshot had a user already, it ignored it and just used that user again. So people were installing and it would say, "Oh, the demo user is still there." That was by design because we didn't want to screw things up, but it was weird. Yeah. So we made a little tweak to the installer, and I'm not sure many people have noticed yet, but some people have noticed, and we're getting some feedback on it. So I'm hoping it's working okay. I'm kind of really happy about that. Adrian and I worked on that. So we're always pushing stuff. That's the other thing. We say we're stable and we're a static release, but we update constantly. We're pushing stuff all the time. Yep. And that's what people don't get is, yeah, we're not rolling. We're not rolling like Arch, but for the next 3 years, you're going to get updates. And when we update stuff. You ain't just getting a security fix. Your versions are going to bump because that's what we know how to do. But so those are my things that in this release that I think are special, or the Fluxbox thing and the Oz repo ISO thing, and then the stuff for that we make snapshot users happier. I really want to push that stuff because we do that better than anybody. We just do.
Nice.
And that's, if people want to make their own spins, go to town.
Well, you also have a plasma version somewhere laying around.
I won't say there's a plasma version. I will say that I did a video building a plasma version on top of Annex. It's not quite the same thing, but folks have played with making a plasma version. I think one of our devs may have a plasma snapshot lurking soon. You didn't hear that from me. Okay. And if he's late, it's not my fault.
That's just between us.
That's just between us and the 10,000 people watching. But yes, we've done them on occasion. And actually, there's a lot of people on our forum who are making snapshots, and we're actually posting a list. I don't know if the list is completely up to date, but we're actually tracking a lot of these. And there's a cinnamon spin. I think there is a user who did a KDE spin, but it's not one of the dev team. all sorts of stuff that people do. The snapshot tool, you can make it your own.
Yep.
And if you're an Antics and you don't like System D, Antics, you could do it the same thing on Antics and with the no System D stuff. You can even do GNOME over there. So that's the fun stuff. If you're a technical user and you want to get into fun, and you want to make a spin, we're going to make that easy, just like we make reinstalling Grub easy.
He says you can even do GNOME over there.
If you want to. Well, a lot of people think you need System D to run GNOME.
Right.
Antics doesn't have System D. Antics can still run GNOME. Put two and two together. There's only bits and pieces of GNOME that require System D, obviously, because BSD runs GNOME, and they don't have System D either. So it's possible. It's just not compiled that way usually.
Right. Well,
yeah.
What's next for MX, dude?
So what's next? Right now, I'm going to coast through summer. No, I don't know. We're working on updating graphic stacks again. I hope no one noticed. We actually tried it not too long ago, and it didn't go very well, so we rolled it back.
Nobody noticed.
I think I'm the only one that noticed, actually, because I know which one of the repos updates first, and I keep it enabled. Yeah, that was weird. But so we're still learning how to do the semi-rolling thing with the Oz spin. There'll probably be some more snapshots coming out. I don't know. I wish I could tell you there's something top secret that we have hidden away in our cloaks that we're going to bring out. Right now, we're trying to figure out the whole client-side decoration thing with XFCE. So that'll probably be our next thing in the future, is deciding which way we're going to. I'm not sure that's a decision. I think it may get made for us by XFCE, but we'll see how it goes. But yeah, that's I don't know exactly. We're just going to keep our people happy. That's our job right now.
Okay.
I guess there'll be another release come, probably after summertime time. We'll refresh the ISOs again.
Is there anything in particular you guys need on the MX team as far as support from people?
Billions and billions of dollars. No. Money's always good. And actually, I really want to say thank you to all the people that have been contributing with cash. We do have, our expenses are a little higher now than they used to be. We have a lot more servers involved with things. So that's been really great. And I really appreciate that. We have a lot of people offering to do coding. They don't really know what they do. People that offer to code, they haven't got the idea that we scratch our own itches yet. Maybe that'll come. I don't know. There is a little, but one of the things we do need, and we always need this, and I can't stress it enough, is the translation team. The translators come and go. We do have a coordinator. He's doing a pretty good job with it, but it's slowed down a little bit. And if we keep all the translations together with Annex on Annex's Transifex page, so you can log in there and you can go to town doing translations. I'd appreciate it if you do your arguing about which German translation's better on Transifex instead of in the forum, because I can't help you. I don't speak German. If I did, I would do it. We do have people that speak German. In fact, we have Germans, as a matter of fact, and Dutch, and every other country you can think of. But so that's a big one for us right now, is continuing to get if I look through the comments on people who post on MX and Annex for that matter, say, well, the translations aren't the greatest. That's fair. We're a small team, and when Ubuntu goes out for translations, 10 million people are looking at them. When we go out for translations, there are 10 people looking at them. So sign up at Transifex, add us to your thing. Our strings are short. Go give it a try. It will do us a world of good. Our apps are set up for some ridiculous number of languages right now. We just need people to fill in the gaps on those languages. So that is a big one for us.
So there's multiple ways to contribute.
There's all sorts of ways. We'll take cash. Don't get me wrong. If you can't translate, you're not bilingual, absolutely click the little button we have for donating. That will be fine. You'll be donating to MX Linux directly. It won't go to anybody's. It's not going to someone's personal account. It's going to the MX Linux account now. We're working on our bus problem, right? The problem where if someone dies, how's the project go on? Right now, the project goes on. We're still. There's more than one of us who have access to everything. So we got a little work to do with the repo stuff yet. but is making sure more than one person can access the master server. But as far as cash, you ain't sending it to a guy; you're sending it to us. So feel free to do so. And there may you asked me it was something new. We are working on a Patreon. We're not there yet. To be honest with you, Patreon's been fine. Our life's just gotten away, and something had to give, and that was it. So
okay. Well, maybe I'm going to say that if you decide to start a Patreon, it's going to be very popular.
I hope, and we want to offer something. Part of what's slowing us down is we want to offer something that most people don't offer on their Patreons, and we've got this idea how to do it, and we know what we want to do. We had a partner, we lost the partner, so I think we're going to try to do it ourselves. It's not nothing major, there's no PC or anything, but I'm not ready to say what we're looking at until we get the kinks worked out of it. But Patreon makes it relatively easy to do, so I think that part will be okay. We just got to do some bulk ordering of things. So
well, let me switch gears here a little bit.
All right.
Let's dive into open source. Have you attended any Linux conferences? And have you booked your tickets for Self 2020?
Okay, so I don't know about Self yet.
Come on, dude.
Well, look, last year that has been my traditional week for Scout Summer Camp, and so that's when I'm off in the woods, unconnected to things. All I will say is, right now, I did move summer camp. Summer camp is shifted a month out of the way.
He wanted to be sure.
I wanted to be sure because I didn't want to move it a week and have them shift a weekend. Okay,
I love it.
So I moved it to July.
Nice.
So June is technically open, but we'll see. I would like to. I have not run that past Mrs. Oracle yet, but that was in the thought process there for a while. As far as other things I've gone to, the only one I've gone to is Ohio Linux Fest in Columbus, Ohio.
And how's that?
It's a smaller show, but it was great. People were talking. I learned some really groovy stuff about Sudo. That the Sudo guy had a little bit of trouble getting started. I think he was having some technical issues, but once he got going, he was great. I think somebody recognized me there. Which was weird, but those are my people. So,
right.
Thank you. And I met Mo West from the BDL group, Steve. I met him and his son. And I actually had my youngest son with me. So we got some great photos together. And we had some fried chicken and stuff. And it was a good time. That's
what it's all about, dude.
Right. And we had a great time. And I would love to go down to Self and do the same thing down there. Not the least of which is it's bound to be warmer than it was in Ohio. It wasn't particularly warm the day we went down. I know we were. It's October. Ohio's was in October, so it was kind of cold in Columbus. But yeah, that was a lot of fun, and I'd love to do another one because.
Well, Self is definitely hotter.
Yeah, I know where Self is. I've actually been there, so that'll be fine.
Yep. Well, you had mentioned earlier about you and your family using open source.
Oh, yes.
And, there are people who stand on the side of open source only. I'm only going to use open source and that's it. And then there's the other people who don't really care. They'll use whatever is the best tool for the job. But you're in that kind of middle range where you want to use open source, you use open source, but you also use Windows. So tell us about that. Okay,
so there's not the Windows thing. There's a certain level. My kids play their games. We got the iTunes lock-in that I mentioned before. If we had gone Amazon, that would have been a lot easier because everything would have been in Amazon in the streaming. But I didn't like the idea of not having a copy downloaded of the stuff we paid for. That still bothers me on Amazon. And Amazon used to offer that, but only on the Windows platform, and then they quit offering it altogether. So that's fine. So that's kind of why the Windows machines are there, is because we don't do any work on them. How's that for something? We don't do any work on those machines. Those are game and movie machines. My wife uses uses Windows because that was came on her computer, and I'm not allowed to touch her computer. At least to the point of breaking things. She needs it to work wherever she goes.
There, you never know.
it could happen, but she runs it live when she needs to,
Right.
so she's got that tool set when she needs it. But like I said, when we talk about open source, a lot of times Linux people talk about Linux on the desktop is open source, but open source is so much more than that. So much open source runs on everything. And it doesn't necessarily start on Linux. It should start on MX. It doesn't start on Linux. Sometimes it starts on other things.
Mm-hmm.
Handbrake was a Mac app, and Handbrake is a great open source tool.
Yep.
In fact, I used it the other day to fix an MKV file that went wonky for a guy that it for whatever, I don't know what it is technical. It didn't know how long the video was, so I ran it through Handbrake real quick and redid whatever Handbrake does. I'm not, as you might tell, I'm only technical in some areas. I'm not technical in this area, and so the open source tools, they're available. They're patched all the time. If you want to donate to them, you usually can. You don't have to pay for them. If it's a one-time deal and you're not sure you like it, that's okay, that's fine. LibreOffice runs on Windows. Zotero runs on Windows. Obviously, the ones that I know. Kdenlive runs on Windows. What the heck? That was a crazy thing. I want people to use the open source applications because those things, I feel the biggest contribution anybody can make back to these open source is back to an open source project is to use it. And I don't really care what you're using it on, as long as you're using it and if you contribute back. The OpenShot guys, Krita runs on Windows and not only on Linux. There's a lot of and a lot of people say, well, that's the dominant platform. Yeah, it's the dominant platform. Maybe we should wake up to the fact that 98% of the universe runs Windows. That's fine. I actually looked at the little chart today of where we are percentage wise, and if you add Chrome to it, Chrome OS to the Linux box, because it was listed separately on the chart I looked at, we're up to like 2.5%. Okay, it's not nothing. It's a lot when you consider the number of computers in the world.
Yep.
But if we want the software, we probably need these guys on Linux. We probably need these guys also getting adoption on the proprietary platforms too, just because they can eat. I'm not saying, and don't read words in my mouth, you guys out there in YouTube land. I know you just think I heard that Linux people don't pay for things. I'm not saying that. I know for a fact Linux people pay for things. Okay. But there are not as many of us as there are Windows. And it's the difference between eating a peanut butter sandwich and having a steak sandwich. Okay. Sometimes. I don't know. The open source guys probably don't make any money anyway, even on Windows, but whatever. It just, there's numbers there. And why not go after the numbers? If I was making LibreOffice, I'd want to go after everybody, not just the Linux guys. If I was going after, some of that's more complicated than others things, but for a lot of things, they run on everything, or they can anyway. I mean, you can compile C with a couple different switches, and you can run a lot of things on Windows.
Yep.
So I make that sound easier than it is. I don't know what I'm talking about in that regard. When I compile an application, I hit a little button that says compile, or I run the magic script that the package guys gave me so that I can make a deb out of MX Tweak or things like that. But people do it. And the open source guys do it. And the more open source software gets in the hands of people, then the more people will not shy away from an open source desktop if it's ever put in front of them.
Agreed.
That's just how it is. If we could have real computers on the shelf running Ubuntu, I have no illusions that MX Linux is going to convert the world. Okay, we have no corporate backing of one sort whatsoever, but Ubuntu does. They in a lot of ways they used to focus on the desktop, and they still have more desktop focus than most other large groups. If they have a laptop sitting there, it's a $500 laptop sitting beside a Windows laptop. That's a $500 laptop. But all the software is the same on those two machines because open source applications have become dominant. And don't talk to me about Microsoft Office because Microsoft Office ain't coming on no $500 laptop. You're going to get the web app. You can run the web app on both. I see you people out there talking. You hear what I'm saying?
Yep.
If the software is the same, then maybe you go, you know what? That looks good. Ubuntu looks good. In a lot of ways, it looks better than Windows. And I think you tracked it that way. Go with what you know. But, and this is going to be an unpopular opinion, until you can easily install a device driver without having to update the whole dang kernel, that mass adoption is still a little tricky because you still got the peripherals to deal with. And say what you want about Windows, its driver model is such that any Tom, Dick, and Harry who ships a hardware part can put a disk in there, and there's your driver. And you can only sort of kind of do that with Linux. You got to know the kernel version. You got to know things before that works on Linux. And then even then, you're probably compiling somehow from source. That part is still weird. All the things we put in the kernel are great because it's magic when it all works, right? When you buy the laptop and you plug the thing in and you install the thing, and all the kernel drivers just happen. That's magic because that is easier than Windows. That is setting up a laptop in 10 minutes when the other guy is still trying to figure out if his machine's compatible, right? That is real. But the people who install operating systems are a subset of a subset. Okay. Yep. And I want a Ubuntu laptop on the shelf at Best Buy, same price as the Windows laptop. I want both desktops running and the applications are the same on both. And I want to see how they do then. Because I don't think you got to compete on price. I think you got to have comparable hardware, and the open source application levels a playing field. And the more Microsoft throws into the open source world, the better for us. And the more that we throw into the Windows world with open source, the better for us. Better for everybody. That is my completely uneducated opinion, worth exactly what you paid for it, which was a big fat nothing. And basically, I just want people using open source because it has been my home for the last 14 years, and it's been awesome. And I want everybody to have that awesome.
Well, let's talk about that for a second. You had mentioned earlier about that, like Antix, it ran your hardware well.
Yes.
There's a lot of people that switch to Linux because I switched to Linux because of being able to customize it,
Absolutely.
So over the years, the community has gotten to the point where, to me, I think it's the best reason to run Linux. But what drives your passion for running Linux right now?
Well, for me, I guess I'm a little bit strange because I'm a dev with MX. I will join you in the customization community. I was the guy with Windows 3.1 running on top of DOS who decided he didn't like the Windows Program Manager shell. So he paid some shareware guy for a replacement shell that looked nothing like Windows. And I ran that for like 2 years. And it was great. I had a little toolbar. I had an enhanced task list thingy bob. There was a weird program launcher. It had 3 parts. So you ran all 3 of them and it did its thing. That's how much I like to customize. I like to just rip the OS apart and put it back together. And that's one reason I like being on a team for MX. Is like, hey, guess what I get to do like all the time? And people like it when I do it. Is rip things apart and put them back together. I think it's great. And it's so much more. Especially some of the desktops. Some of the desktops more than others, but most of the desktops have those customization features that are almost infinite. It seems like, KDE. God,
oh my gosh,
I can't even navigate the settings. XFCE, people think XFCE has no customization. XFCE has a crap ton of customization options. You just got to put the time in to learn where they're at. And KDE is kind of the same way, except squared. Probably it's got page upon page of settings. But that appeals to some people. It appeals to me to be able, if I want, half my panel to be purple. I'm pretty sure I could figure out a way to make half my panel purple. That's what I like. The other day, our office updated to Windows 10 because of the big January thing. I can't make dark mode work on Windows 10. It says dark mode's working.
But it's not working.
But all the apps are still white. And that shouldn't be. If I set dark mode on MX, it's dark. And it's like that on most other desktops, no matter what desktop you're running. When you customize it, it stays customized. You don't have to worry about some update ruining a thing. And I guess I like that. And I like the modular desktop. There's one reason I like XFCE. I wasn't an XFCE guy before MX, really, but I've come to enjoy it because it's so modular. And the old LXDE was kind of the same way. You could take pieces of it, right? Yep. And say, okay, I want the panel. There's the panel. Oh, I want another panel. Okay, slap one over here. I can have the desktop, or I can have not the desktop, or I can have icons and not icons. But throw all that stuff away, and I can have a wallpaper on every whatever screen or every workspace that's different, or I can make it sing Tweety Bird songs when I log in. Whatever. I love all that stuff, and I love making it look however I want it to look. A lot of people want that panel across the top and across the bottom, and that's almost all the customization they really do. They put the panel on the top, they put the panel on the bottom, they add a launcher. That's fine. That's what you guys want to do. I love it because you drag it, you do your thing. That's fantastic. I've actually come to enjoy the thing on the side of my screen. It wasn't my choice when we did it. I lobbied against it, actually, and I've come to love it. I even like the stupid little menu in the bottom corner. And I know that upsets the Ubuntu people because the menu is in the bottom left-hand corner. But I'm just going to say that when your panel is flat across the bottom, where's your menu?
Yep.
Bottom left-hand corner.
Bottom left corner.
The menu is in the same place no matter which way that panel's rotated. And it bugs the bejesus out of people. And that's okay. I love those guys too. And that's one reason why the thing flips the way it does and does the things it does. But I wanted that customization. I want it for everybody. And it frustrates me when people, the Windows environment that claims it's customizable, I just want to strangle it because it's not really customizable. And I am that guy. I'm with you. As one reason I ran OS2 Warp. OS2 Warp had all kinds of customization options. In 97, this thing was doing stuff that Linux does now. And it was still leaps and bounds. And like everything else, the best tech doesn't always win. But I still have a special place in my heart for that thing, even though it came on like 13 floppy disks or something. It was, it had a big red box and was happy. I just liked it. But that's what I like, the customization. I don't customize my laptop. Well, you know what? That's not true. Actually, on my private, that's top secret.
Super top secret.
On my private SourceForge, which people can probably find if they're clever. I have a snapshot that I made for myself. That's kind of a testing kind of deal. Snapshot. It's systemd only, but it's still got the Annex Live system on it. It doesn't work 100%, but it's about 95%. And it works for what the lion's share of people are going to use it for. But I've customized the crap out of that thing, right? It's got, I've ripped sysv out of it. I've got a special login window, and I've changed the login screen, and the themes are all different, and the boot menu is different. Everything's different because I can change all that stuff on Linux. Whether you make a snapshot or not, you can change that stuff.
Yep.
We actually have a tool for that. Surprise, right? Boot options. You can change the grub and the theme and the boot splash all on one page. Ta-da, you heard it here first. So I love all that. It actually drives me crazy when I can't change something. And it shows in the way my desktop looks at work. So my desktop here at home it's clean, it's crisp. There's one icon on the desktop for the manual, just in case I need the manual for something. Other than that, I got my Dalek in the middle of the screen. Everything is neat and tight the way I like it. And then I go to my Windows machine at work, and the Windows machine at work has, I got 10 million icons on the desktop. Right, I'm that old lady at work because I can't stand it. I can't stand to use it. If it downloads something to the desktop, that's just where it's going to be. I don't file anything. It's just going to be there. And like once or twice a month, I go and I delete all the icons and start over again.
Yep.
I'm different at work because I just don't care about it. I have no passion for that operating system. It runs AutoCAD. That's the only thing I like about it. I did strip the file manager out of it and put a new file manager in. So there is that. But yeah, I'm with you. You customize everything. That's what I like.
Well, I usually ask people if they do any coding, but obviously
I
with
do a little.
MX, you do slightly a little of coding. But do you have something like maybe a favorite project or something that meant a lot to you that you worked on?
Yeah, so I got two. One is one of the first projects I did for Antics, which was we wrote the first GUI for the live USB maker, and it was in Bash and YAD, and it was horrible. And I all the bad habits I learned in that thing, um, all were corrected by BitJam, and he guided me through it, and it became a much stronger, much better app. And I took a lot of that when we made the Qt version. I didn't write the Qt version. I helped write the Qt version, but the original GTK YAD Bash version I wrote, and I still keep it around because there's so many little tricks in it that I want to remember for the future, little libraries, little routines that I want. So that's kind of one of my sentimental favorites. Also, adding the auto mount features to Antics, that was awesome. It's one of the big. I did a video called top five grumps of Antics 15 or something. I forget which version it was. And like the number one grump was when I stick in a USB stick, it doesn't mount automatically. How do I mount my USB stick? And it was really cumbersome at the time. And so we wrote a little thing. We came up with a procedure and we wrote a little doohickey that all it does is wait for USB sticks to show up. And if they show up, it pops it up. And whatever file manager happens to be your default file manager at the time, that's what's going to open. And that was a little more complicated than I gave it credit for when I started. But it's also one of my favorites. On the MX side, my favorite is still MX Tweak because it's mine. And it's crazy and it's nutty and it kind of reflects my personality because it's kind of eclectic. It's just a bunch of stuff in there that I wanted to be able to set. And people have suggested other stuff that we've added over time, but the original like 8
Yes.
things that it did were mine. I was like, I want double click. I want no icons on the desktop. I want this. I want, I don't want double click in Thunar either, And
Come on, single click for the win, dude.
well, it's default single click, Rocco, just for you. So you know, we love checkboxes on MX. Well, I know this, but I wanted to be able to go click, 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 because there was like 3 different dialog windows boxes in XFCE to do that, to do those 3 things. Why do I got to go to the window manager, Thunar, and the desktop? You know what? I don't. Here's the thing. Click, 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 click. Done. So if this is your distro, you can do what you want. So that's what we did. So that's kind of one of my favorites. And of course, those are the ones I personally work on. And then, and then the last one that I'm really proud of, right after we split MX and Antics, the installer got forked. And I don't know how you can decide which one forked which, but anyway, we ended up with 2 pieces and they were diverging. And what we were happening was we were getting more contributions and whatnot on one, and they weren't making it over to the other, and the code was getting more and more separated. So I started a project, and not just me, but Adrian and the guy that runs Antics, Andy Capolisa, but I initiated it, called Gazelle. And you can find it on GitHub. It's the Gazelle installer on GitHub. And that is the Antics and MX installers. We took some time. I crammed the parts from the 2 back together. Adrian and I did, and Annie, and we put all that stuff back together. And then we made data packs so that we could have customization options. It's kind of the way Calamares did it. They have these theme packs for the different distros that you can have. And
Right.
we kind of did that for Antics and MX. So now when people contribute to Gazelle, they're contributing to MX and Antics installers automatically. The code fixes happen in both places, and all the customization stuff is in these extra pieces. And actually, my weird little test systemd only respin snapshot I did uses the fact that those data packs are separate. I have my own, and I crammed them in there because I needed some things to happen on systemd that don't need to happen on the main ISOs. I'm really proud of that project because we have gained 2 full-time, one full-time developer because he did not full-time. You know what I'm saying? We're not paying
Yes,
people,
I know
but
what you're
one
saying.
full-time team member who came to us to redesign that thing, and he has done so much with it. And he's been pretty good about my concerns with making sure we don't lose functionality. So it's still our project, he's just really taken a good shepherding of it and updated all the code and the just so many things he's done to it. And I really think that bringing those two projects back together on its own GitHub project facilitated that. I don't know if that's true. Maybe it would have happened otherwise, but I like to tell myself that when I'm trying to fall asleep at night, that 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 the Gazelle project is important. It's separate, but not separate. You know what I mean? It's
Yep.
Gazelle stands by itself because in my mind, neither project owns it. It's its own project, but really both projects own it. So, and technically you could, I mean, I may or may not have run the Gazelle installer on a Peppermint spin. I'm just saying you can put it on other things, but you got to know what you're doing. It is not easy
Yeah.
to do. But those are my favorite projects on it right now. Besides just doing all the back end like project manager stuff, I was a construction project manager for so long. It's hard to give up some of that. So that's one reason I'm doing the release managing. I'm also keeping an eye on helping the repo guys, and they don't need my help. They're awesome, but they listen to me. Maybe they humor me. I don't know, but those are my favorite things in the project right now. That I work on anyway. There's lots of great things, but those are the ones I work on.
Right. So what would you say the best thing and the worst thing is about developing MX is?
So the best thing is you get the ability to do what you want within reason. We do answer to our community. We do answer to there are 25 dev team members. So sometimes various members who make proposals, sometimes we get voted in, sometimes we get voted out. I've probably lost more votes than your average dev team member. I've probably also won more votes than the average dev team member because I probably make more proposals. But a lot of it is, and sometimes we don't vote. Sometimes we just do it and tell people about it later, right? Because that's kind of our prerogative. That's the best part. That's the good stuff. Having the direct hand in things is the best part. The worst part is when you do something and it turns out to be really stupid and breaks people, because then you hear about it. And now we have so many users. I don't know how many users we have. We don't track anybody, so I don't know how many users we have, but it's a lot. And we hear about it from a lot of people and a lot of different sources. I'll hear if we screw a update up, I'll hear about it on Twitter, Facebook, Reddit. They'll probably email me. And if I break that one guy in town's computer, I'll probably get a phone call. So that's the worst part, is when you do something and it doesn't work the way you thought it would. That's bad. I don't like those. Those aren't good days. We had an update go bad when I was at summer camp, and last year actually, and I had all I had was my phone and an intermittent internet connection. And I'm like, at one point I know what to do and I can't tell them what to do because I have no internet to do it with. And that was the worst. I walked like a mile to get an internet connection so that I can finally say, I don't care what else you guys do, but you got to take the repo down. Stop the bleeding. Don't do anything else. Just stop the bleeding, and then we'll fix it.
Yeah.
And then it was okay after that. But those are hard days. And for me, when something breaks for somebody or it doesn't work and they're upset, those are bad days for me. I don't like the trolls. I thankfully don't have that many trolls, so that's good. Sometimes I get a troll that I mess with back. Sometimes most of the time I leave them be because it's not really my fun and game to feed the trolls. But those guys aren't fun. But they're far and few between. But when I go onto a live stream and 6 people say, "How's it going, Dio?" I'm fairly certain that's not because I'm a dev. I'm fairly certain that's because the open source communities that I'm a part of are fairly welcoming communities. And I enjoy that aspect too.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are the things I like and don't like as a dev is you do have especially me, the face. I don't even do I don't do most of the work. I build the ISO. This package guys and the guys taking care of other parts of the project, they do far more work than I do. But I'm the face, right? So whenever something goes bad, I get the PMs.
So let's say that you install MX, fresh install, and I would assume that you're going to use the application installer that you have in there to check boxes for software that you need.
As a matter of fact, yes.
So what boxes are you checking? What software do you need to run on a daily basis?
Okay, so when I do a fresh install, Actually, when I do a fresh install, everything's already installed because I do the USB stick first. But at any rate, so when I'm installing apps, I got to have Genie text editor, which is actually installed by default now, but it didn't used to be, so it's still in the package installer. So sometimes I check it because I forget. But Genie for a text editor. I got to have here lately. I've been using MPV instead of VLC. Um, I don't actually even know why I'm doing that, but I am, and I'm kind of enjoying it. Kdenlive, I need Simple Screen Recorder. I've been playing with OBS Studio here lately, but my machine's still not very powerful, and it tends to unsync my lips
Yeah.
a little bit. It does have that little millisecond thing you can adjust. I've got 3 or 4. The last 3 videos have been OBS, so I've been installing OBS, using OBS with that. VirtualBox, I still use VirtualBox because I just comfortable with it. I got some extra themes that I install that are available in there, and but I don't need. Oh, and in our development box we have our Gits actually installed by default because at one time or another one of our tools actually used Git to make in a very small local Git repo. It doesn't do it anymore. It's how we used to switch the panel. You can do some cool tricks with Git, but we don't do it that way anymore. Now we calculate the panel, which is a lot harder. But Git kind of remained on the ISO, and we all use it, so we left it that way. So I use Git. I use it from the command line. I don't have any graphical tools with it. The Qt dev environment option I use, and that brings in the manuals and the graphics, the UI designer, and the Qt creator application, which is like an IDE integrated environment specifically for Qt. And that's great because all the text highlighting works, and it's got different links between the different Qt files. And for a guy like me who doesn't actually know what he just did, I can start with a template file that Adrian set up and go from there. I'm okay. That is a godsend because I'm that guy. I'm a hack, okay, and I know I'm a hack, and I tell people I'm a hack. And you heard it here first. I'm kind of hacky when it comes to coding, but I'm getting better, and this is helping me get better. But Genie for Bash, Qt Creator for the Qt stuff, and then my usual suite of video editing stuff. I'm Kdenlive guy. I've tried OpenShot. I keep coming back to Kdenlive. I just know how I just got the quirks worked out, and I know how the and all my titles are in that. Yeah, it's just how it works. I got my titles saved. I can drag my titles in. And my titles aren't the most complicated titles anyway, but they're I don't want to redo them either. So
right.
But so those are the things I install. And I actually, when I made my spin, I actually originally had all that stuff installed, and it was just huge, right? My spin got up to 2.4 gigabytes, and I just didn't want to upload it, so I stripped a lot of it out when I made the spin. But I threw it up on my test repo so that I could find it later in case I hose my computer. Because
that will never happen.
No, that never happens.
All right. Right. So you talked about software earlier, and you mentioned how, you want people to use open source software no matter what system they're running on. But is there any software that you would like to see come to Linux that would make a difference, you think?
Yeah, oddly, I think Microsoft Office coming to Linux, while technically speaking, we don't need it, really, would be kind of a moral victory. Even now, when people buy a laptop and they come to me, they say, "Hey, you probably have this because you're probably the computer guy in your family." And they say, "Hey, I need help buying a laptop." So you say this, and they always say, "Well, what about Word? I need Word." Well, nothing comes with Word. Nobody does that except business computers. So, but if they did do that, that would be kind of a moral thing. And you could say, "Hey, this Ubuntu computer over here also has Word." Oh, great! All I need is Word, Excel, and a web and Chrome. Okay, you got all those things. And in fact, if you're about to have the Internet Explorer thingy come over, whatever that is, Edge, you could do that. That would be huge. I don't think it's going to happen, but it would be huge. So Excel still does pivot tables better than anybody. So, there are some technical reasons to have it, but there's 3 people using pivot tables. So that would be a thing. But yeah, if someone was going to do that would be one. I wish they would just go ahead and port iTunes over Because honestly, if they ported iTunes over, that would solve like my media center problem downstairs. That's a personal thing for me, but there is zero reason why that iTunes thing can't be at least run on Linux. I don't care really if it's open source, but let it run on Linux. That would be okay. That would be like, that would solve a lot of the iPhone problems too, that people have with syncing up their iPhones. So, but do I think that'll happen? No, I don't. Even though technically that should be easy because Mac is Unix underneath. That should be. I mean, they own cups for crying out loud, or not own it, but they whatever. There's their thing. That should be easy. But it's the world we live in.
So, what do you think of when I say the term "You're the Linux desktop"?
I laugh because it happened like 10 years ago, and it's happened like every year since then. I don't know. Year of Linux desktop is great. Is great fun in the Linux community at this point. I don't think anyone outside the Linux community has ever heard that term. So that's probably part of the problem. Like I said, as much as we talk about Chromebooks being the public face of Linux to the great masses, there's not actually that many of them. I mean, there's a lot. Don't get me wrong, but it's whatever. It's 6%, less than 1% or something. And it's just a Chrome web browser anyway, really. So I don't know. It doesn't bother me. It's funny. I always say it's the year of the Linux desktop, but for me, maybe what you actually need is your own personal year of the Linux desktop.
That's it.
And that's the year that you put Linux on your machine and don't look back.
Yep. You hit it. You hit it right there. Well, dude, if you could change one thing about Linux, what would it be?
Oh,
just one.
Just one. It's going to have to. I've got to have a way to put drivers in easier. It's like I said earlier, it's less of a problem now, but it's still a problem if you're buying new stuff.
Yeah.
If I put on Ubuntu LTS and I run the LTS kernel for as long as that thing's supported for, I can't guarantee that when I buy a doohickey 3 years from now and that thing's still supported, that kernel is going to have a driver for it. It might. Things are really good now, don't get me wrong, but who knows what's going to come out? What if there's I can't even think of an example. That's how wide out it is. Right. But well, here, I'll give you one. A new graphics card. Well, if AMD ships out a new graphics card, I got to update the kernel.
Yep.
To put a graphics driver on. I don't have to update the kernel on Windows to get a graphics driver.
Yeah, even with AMD, open sourcing their drivers and stuff, if you buy a brand new card, you're still going to have to wait a little bit.
It's hard. It is. We can't have it out of the gate because we got it. Well, we can, but whoever's getting that card out of the gate, and thankfully, people buying those cards are usually techie types who want high-end graphics cards anyway. So they're probably comfortable with switching it, but that's indicative of the issue. I think the all-in-one driver kernel is great when it's magic and it all works, and it's terrible when it doesn't. And there's nothing you can do about it when it doesn't, because it just doesn't work. They're not there, and it's I'm not critical of the Linux kernel. It is amazing, and we're stretching it and pushing it, and those guys that do the Linux stuff, kernel stuff, are like on a different plane of existence as far as I'm concerned. But we all know that the drive, you don't have to compile them from source. You just can't use it until your kernel supports it and Mesa supports it, which is less of a problem really, because you can usually backport Mesa. But it gets complicated. That's what we do with Oz. We backport Mesa so that whenever it updates, if as long as we can bring it back into Debian Buster, we'll be able to keep updating it.
Right.
But that's a Band-Aid, because at some point someone's going to buy a card 3 years from now, and the only answer is going to be click the little box for the Ubuntu hardware enable it stack or whatever they have. I don't actually know what they have to do that. I assume it doesn't ship enabled, and update your kernel and update all kinds of other things. That potentially could be a problem. I don't know. It's probably fine. I trust Canonical to do it probably more than anybody else. If I did it, I'd probably break something, because that's just me. I break things.
Right.
But that'd be it. The driver model needs a refresh.
Well, the last question I have for you is there's a lot of people that feel that they can't contribute because maybe they're not a coder or they're not technical enough to do something that they, because people think if I'm going to contribute to a project, I need to code software. But there are so many ways to contribute, and you started contributing by your videos.
Yes.
Just making videos. So what would you tell somebody who wants to contribute to Linux right now, but doesn't know how or doesn't know where to start?
So the easiest way, the entry level, the lowest bar for contributing to Linux is, particularly if you're talking about a distribution or a certain software, is to get involved with that group's community. However that community is set up. Most people have forums, some people have Telegram groups, whatever. If you get involved with that, then even if you're not the most technical user, you're going to learn stuff. And then, like me, over time, you're going to learn to the point where you can help someone else, or you're going to see someone who had a problem that you had that was fixed, and you can tell them how you fixed it. And you can make such a difference in a user's life by reaching out on the forum and helping them do that. And yeah, okay, sometimes it's okay to say, hey, why don't you take a look in the manual? I like to say, if there's a spot in our manual for this, here's the fix, but there is a spot in the manual that walks you through it. Or here's a YouTube, in my case, here's a YouTube video I did, a year ago that walks you through it. Whatever you can do to help. Especially desktop Linux projects like ours, we're always looking for art. If you happen to be an art type guy, you can be very valuable because a lot of projects have one or two people submitting art projects. We tend to have we do a vote every time we do a major release, and we like to have a lot of wallpapers so we can choose. But even if we don't put them on the ISO, we put them on our website, so they're there for people to download. So anybody who contributes a wallpaper to the official contest type deal, that wallpaper's there. You can contribute by beta testing or filing bugs. We have our Bugzilla. Most people have some sort of bug tracking utility on their websites, or sometimes people just track them in the forums. I did that for a long time. In fact, if your project is one that doesn't have a bug tracker, and some smaller projects don't, and that's fine. It's probably one of the last things that gets added as you grow. One of the things I did early on with MX14 is I tracked the bugs. I went through all the forum posts of people tracking bugs, and I kept a master list. And if your project is one of those projects that doesn't have an external tracker, you might find yourself very popular if you start tracking the bugs for folks and posts and having a running master list. That was huge in like the first 3 releases of MX that we did, and it got cumbersome by the end because we were adding so many more features. And then we said, you know what? We got like 15 apps. We need to have a bug tracker.
Yep.
But a lot of people don't have the apps that we have. They might have a respin or a small project, or even a big project that tracks everything through a forum or a post. You could be huge to a team that way, and that doesn't take any technical skill other than typing and keeping track of hyperlinks. And then I mentioned translators. If you speak 2 languages, you can be very, very popular in the Transifex community, translating strings for the apps. Because, LibreOffice and Kdenlive probably get translations out the wazoo, but MX Tweak needs a little love and tender care every now and then. It's kind of a little guy. And I use short declarative sentences, so they're easy to translate. But those are big, and of course, there's always cash if nothing else. But if you really want to be part of the community, and we've got guys in our forum who aren't on the dev team, well, we give them access to the dev team forums and stuff, but technically they're not dev team members. They're forum guides. I forget what we call them, but they're guides. Those guys are huge because they're hand-holding the very new users. Because strangely enough, we have got a lot of new users here lately. We were commenting the other day that ever since the Windows 10, I know a lot of people said, well, that's kind of a myth. But you know what? For a small project, if you've got 20 people coming into your project because they're switching from Windows 7, that's 20 people that you got to hold their hand and help them out.
Yep.
And the hand-holding is critical. If you are a longtime Linux user and just not a coder. I know Dark One does this for people occasionally. He'll help. He and I have talked privately, and I'm probably outing him a little bit, but there's some projects that he's helped behind the scenes. I don't think he's a coder necessarily. I don't know. Maybe he's brilliant. I have no idea. But he helps out behind the scenes with the people who were doing the coding for the other projects. So you can do that. And sometimes all you need is a sounding board and willingness to say, when a guy posts a deb up in the application development forum, it says, hey, try this deb and see if it breaks anything. If you're just willing to install the deb and see if it breaks anything, yeah, gold star. Because we need that's before we push it out to the repos. That's how you can contribute. You don't have to code. Come be human someplace in the forums and be the guy reaching out to the new user. I used to say the word no new users in Linux. I'm kind of saying, yeah, there's a lot of new users in Linux. And it's, even if the percentages are small, the raw counts for small teams are large. So be that person that's reaching out to the new users into the community, and don't be a jerk that says RTFM every day. And you'll go a long way.
Yep. Agreed.
Or be a jerk and say RTFM and then give them the link. I don't care. That's fine too. Sometimes you link the week because you said it 12 times.
Well, dude, this has been a great conversation. How can people, or I shouldn't say how, what is the best way to get in contact with you? Okay,
so the best way to get in contact with me, that's kind of okay. I'm on Twitter at Dolphin Oracle on Twitter. You can reach me in the MX forum. Is probably the easiest place. I monitor the MX forum pretty close. I'm in there. I'm on my YouTube channel. Of course, I'm getting all the comments there. Those are easy. If it's technical problems, the forum is probably the best place. Although I am starting to hang out over at Reddit on the RMX Linux subreddit more often. That's kind of new. You won't find me on Facebook, because you might be shocked to learn my name is not Dolphin Oracle in real life, and Facebook won't let me use Dolphin Oracle. So, you're not going to find me on Facebook, but I do poke my head in there on occasion, incognito. But those are the best ways to get me. And I'm pretty open. Don't send me 10 gigabyte files. I'm not going to download them unless I ask for them. But hey, you know what? Those are the easy ways to get a hold of me, and I try to be nice, unless, I'm always nice.
Unless you're not.
There's a couple of times I'm not, but usually they deserve it. And not in the new user kind of way deserve it. They deserve it because they're being mean and jerks, and they get what they get. I'm fiercely protective of our users.
Well, brother, I want to not just thank you for joining me for this awesome discussion, but dude, I want to thank you for all of the contributions that you have made. 192 YouTube videos, countless hours in Antics, countless hours in MX Linux, countless hours in the forums talking to people. You have contributed so much to the community, and I don't think you get the credit that you deserve.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. For a guy who started life in a coal town in southern West Virginia, and being able to reach out to people all over the world now, thanks to these projects and things, I couldn't be happier. I've received more than I've ever given. So thank you very much for all you guys for that.
Awesome. All right, that's going to wrap it up. Thank you all for joining us this week as we spotlight the best thing about Linux, our community. Until next time, long live Linux.